Hello, welcome back to Alexa. I'm so happy you're here, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to make Simplicity S3108. It's a vest and skirt set. It's giving summer suit, you know what I mean? It's super cute. Can't wait for you guys to see it. Okay, so let's take a look at the pattern, shall we? Calls for boucle, cotton twill, denim, linen blends. You also need lightweight fusible interfacing. And for notions, for view A, you'll need 5 7/8" buttons. And for view B, the skirt, you'll need 1 7" invisible zipper. So I actually didn't get any of the fabrics that were suggested. I ended up getting a polyester poplin suiting. I was searching for something that was a natural fabric because I knew this would be a summer suit, and I wanted it to be as breathable as possible. And it's like my eyes just like zoomed in on this polypoplin suiting material, and I just thought it was perfect. During this project, I started cutting out the pieces, and I was like, oh, this fabric was the perfect choice. Fabric was perfect. While I was cutting out the fabric, I was like, dang, this is so perfect. While I was interfacing, I'm like, man, you can't get any better than this. And then while I was sewing it, I was like, this is gonna be good. Okay, so I took notes after I made the mock-up muslin for this project, and it took me about 8 hours to make the vest and the skirt. So I used a medium weight muslin for the mock-up, and I don't know what I was thinking. So when I first made it, I made a size 20 in the skirt and in the vest, and the vest was way too big. I did adjust the pattern for this skirt, so in the waistband area, I'm a size 20 according to the pattern. And then because this is more like an A-line skirt, I just had to make sure it fit my hips comfortably. The size 22 was perfect for my hips when I looked at the finished garment measurements. I think this is the first time I chose a size based off the finished garments measurements. I usually just go off the measurements at the top. You can see this. But this was the first time I looked at the finished garments measurements, which on this pattern is in the instructions. I kept the waistband at a size 20, and then the top of the skirt I kept at a 20, and then I blended it to a size 22 to fit my hips. For the vest, that's a different story. So I made a 20, and the 20 in the muslin was way too big. It was huge. I then made a mock-up of the size 16 because I looked at the finished garment measurements and realized I think the size 16 would work best for me. It will fit my waist. I didn't do any armhole facings. I just put the front pieces and the back pieces together to see what that was giving. And I pretended to like close it, like if the buttons would be there. And that's when I noticed that the 16 fit my waist, but it was like still a little bit too gapy. It still had too many gaps, like in the armhole and the neck. I was like, what's the easiest way for me to confront this? Based off the finished garment measurements, I felt like the size 14 measurements would fit my bust best. So I then made a plan to use the size 14 for the bust and a size 16 for the waist. So I had to do that by putting the 14 on top of the size 16, and then just blending that waistline, that 14 from the bust into the waistline of the 16, and then adjusting all of the pattern pieces like that. So it took some time, but I think I got a really good fit out of doing that. Yeah, I just really enjoyed making this. So I really hope that this tutorial inspires you to create something beautiful today. And yeah, let's get into the video. Let's start off by cutting out our pieces for views A and view B. Here, I'm just transferring the markings from the pattern to the fabric using a washable marker. And here, I'm interfacing the pieces that call for it per the instructions. Here's the front, the side front, the flap, the back, the side back, the front facing, the back facing, the front armhole facing, the back armhole facing, and the guide for the buttonhole. For view B, we have the front, the side front, the back, the side back, the front waistband, and the back waistband. Here I'm going to show you how I blended the skirt size to match my measurements. Since my hips sit 14 inches below my waist, I measured 14 inches down from the waistline on the waistband to mark my hip line. At that point, I used a size 22 for my hips. I kept the waistband pieces at a size 20 because that's the best fit for my waist based on the finished garment measurements. Then I blended each skirt piece from a size 20 at the waist to a size 22 at the hip, creating a smooth transition between the two sizes. Here I'm just setting up for a seamless session. I have 2 bobbins full and ready to go, and I'm using painter's tape to mark my machine for the 5/8 inch seam allowance. This just allows me to think about one less thing while sewing. Take the interfaced front pieces and stay stitch the side edges. With right sides together, pin the side front to the side edges of the front, matching the notches. Clip to the stay stitching if necessary. Once pinned, take it to the machine. Trim the excess seam allowance. Clip the curve around the bust seam Here's my overcast foot I'll be using to finish the raw edges. Press the seam toward the front piece. Grab the flap and with right sides together, fold along the fold line. Then pin and sew the ends. Turn the flap right side out. I'm using a point turner to get those corners. Press the flap, then baste the raw edges together. On the outside, pin the flap to the front, placing the basting along the flap line, matching the small dots. Sew along the basting. Trim close to the stitching. Turn the flap down, then press. Then top stitch close to the upper edge. I finished the center back edges of the back pieces, then with right sides together, pin the center back seam. Then take it to the machine. Stay stitch the side edges of the back. With right sides together, pin the side back sections to each side of back, matching the notches. Baste, then sew. Trim the excess seam allowance. I then finish the raw edges. Press the back seam open. Then press the seams towards the back piece. Finish the raw edges at the shoulder seams. With right sides together, pin the front to back at the shoulder seams. Before taking it to the machine, check to be sure the seams are aligned. Sew the shoulder seams. I first start sewing where those seams align to control for any misalignment from the feed dogs. Then I go back to the beginning of the shoulder seam and sew. Press the shoulder seams open. Finish the side raw edges and with the right sides together, sew at the side seams. Press the side seams open. With right sides together, pin the facing sections to the back facing at the shoulders. Take it to the machine. Press the seams open. Finish the unnotched edge of the facing. It's all coming together quite nicely. Overcasting the raw edges makes it look so professional. With right sides together, pin the facing to the garment, having raw edges even, matching the centers back and the shoulder seams. Sew the neck and front edges. Trim the excess seam allowance. Clip the curves. Press the seam toward the facing. Understitch the facing as far as possible. Turn the facing to the inside. Press. To keep the facing from rolling to the outside, hand tack the facing at the shoulder seams. With right sides together, pin the front armhole facing to the back armhole facing and sew. Press the seams open. Finish the unnotched edge of the facing. Sew the underarm seam. Press open. With right sides together, pin the facing to the armhole edge, matching shoulder and underarm seams. Then take it to the machine. Take it to the machine. Trim the seam, clip the curves, press the seam toward the facing, understitch the facing as far as possible, turn the facing inside and press, hand tack the facing at the shoulder seams. Turn the lower edge of the facing to the outside along the seam. Mark and pin across facing 1.25 inches above the raw edge. Sew along that marking. then trim. Turn the facing to the inside. I finished the hem using my overcast foot. I then used my hot ruler to press the hem up 1.5 inches. Pin the hem in place and baste close to the fold. Whenever I baste, I use a contrasting thread to remind me to take the stitching out. Top stitch the hem in place, then remove the basting stitches. Then sew the facings to the hem. Because I blended the sizes of the vest, I also had to blend the sizes of the buttonhole guide. This pattern is a size 16, and I had to blend the top of the buttonhole guide to match the size 14. So I just laid the size 14 on top and then traced that curve. And then I measured the distance between the top of the curve to that buttonhole line. And I did that for the next few buttonholes until I reached where the waistband is, or the waistline is, and that would be a size 16. So I think for the last couple of buttonholes, I didn't have to adjust those at all. Place the guide along the finished edge of the garment, then transfer the buttonhole markings to the garment. Make the buttonholes at the markings. Look at these beautiful buttonholes. I'm just so proud of myself. Here I'm just clipping those threads. I'm using fray check to seal the buttonhole. After applying the fray check, let it dry for up to 30 minutes. Grab your seam ripper and open the buttonholes. Apply more fray check to the open buttonholes. Let that dry for an additional 30 minutes. I grabbed the pattern and I measured the center front line on the pattern, and it's 11/16 from the edge. That's where I marked to sew the buttons. These are the buttons I used. I found them originally at the fabric store where I got the fabric at, but they only had one pack of 2 buttons and I need 5 for this project. So I went home and I found these buttons on stitchesseattle.com. I'm so happy I found them. I fell in love with them, and the moment I saw them, I knew I had to add them to this beautiful outfit. Here I'm just testing out those buttonholes, and that's it for view A, the vest. Let's get started with view B, the skirt. I finished the side seam raw edges of the skirt pieces with my overcast foot. With right sides together, pin the side front pieces to each side of the front, matching the notches. Do the same for the back and side back pieces. Sew at the side seams. Pin the front to the back at the right side seam, leaving the left side open. Take it to the machine. Press the seam open. Stay stitch the upper edge of the garment. Take the interfaced front waistband and back waistband and sew the right side seam, matching the notches. Press the seam open. Pin the waistband to the upper edge of the skirt, matching the centers and right side seams, clipping the stay stitching when necessary. Then sew. Trim the seam. Clip the curves. Press the seam toward the waistband. Open the zipper and on the outside, pin the right side of the zipper face down on the left back piece. Make sure the zipper pull is in alignment with the notch. Hand base along the center of the tape. Use an invisible zipper foot to sew the zipper. So pretty. It looks like something out of Express. Pin the remaining half of the zipper to the left front in the same manner and sew. Pin the remainder of the seam and then take it to the machine. Pin and sew the right side seam of the waistband facing pieces, matching the notches. Press the seam open. Then press under 1/2 inch on the lower notched edge of the waistband. With right sides together, pin the facing to the skirt, matching the centers and side seams. Sew the upper edge. Trim the seam, clip the curves, pin the back opening edges together. I used an invisible zipper foot to sew a 1/2 inch from the back edge. Clip the corners, understitch the facing as far as you can, turn the facing and left edges to the inside, press the last seam open and press the facing. Pin the facing an 1/8 inch over the seam by placing the pins on the right side of the fabric. On the outside, stitch in the ditch of the seam. I finished the skirt bottom edge using my overcast foot, then turned up and pinned the hem 3/4 of an inch. Lastly, I top stitched the hem in place. It was such a fun project to do. I think in the fall, I want to make like a burgundy version of it. I think that would be so cute. And maybe a black version of it too. It's giving teacher, it's giving president's wife. Tell me what you think. If you made it this far, be sure to subscribe to my channel, drop some love or questions in the comments, and thank you for watching. Until next time.